This
contest
conference
winner.
will now be recorded.
And we only have second place here, so we'll go ahead and present that now to Mr. Patrick Dewey of 2024 E6. There you go. Let's see. Now we have our, I took these out of order. We have our service award. For that, we're going to invite up Chief Woolery to present that.
After you work, can you come forward, please? Even though Matthew is the interim city administrator, a good part of his career he's spent with us, so I asked the mayor if I could do the presentation of the him tonight, and he graciously agreed. I know my time's limited, so I'll just do the highlights, but it's me, so it'll be too long. Matthew, you started at the city of Sedalia with the police department on February 20th of 1999 as a reserve police officer. On October 31st of 99, you transitioned to a full-time police officer where you worked afternoons and midnights for about 6 years before being promoted to sergeant on July 3rd, 2005. As a sergeant, you commanded a patrol shift until moving to investigations in February of 2009. You worked as a detective sergeant for 2 years until achieving the position of commander. As a commander, you ran the Patrol Bureau, Criminal Investigations Bureau, Administrative Support Bureau, before being promoted to the Chief of Police on April 27th of 2018. I had the opportunity to work with you for 5 years as you were the Chief of Police. During that time, I saw you lead by example in work ethic, determination, and vision. You had a vision of professionalism, transparency, and community. These are ideals we still hold close to our heart as a police department. On December 11th, 2023, you resigned as the Chief of Police and started as the Assistant City Administrator. Over the last year, I've watched you introduce your determination and vision to several city departments, moving into new levels of professionalism and efficiency. Congratulations on 25 years of service to your community. Thank you for your commitment you have provided Sedalia on all levels. I'm proud to share this journey with you and have the opportunity to present you with the pin tonight. 25 years ago, you started as a reserve officer and have worked all the way up to reserve officer once again.
Oh, that's good. Okay, next item on our agenda is approval of the previous session minutes. These are from the council meeting dated December 16th, 2024. Do I have a motion and a second? So moved. I have a motion and a second. Do I have any amendments that need to be made to the meeting minutes? Having heard none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion passes. Now we have community development up first. Chairwoman Foster, you have the floor.
We are going to have a presentation this evening. I would please like to call the City Attorney, Joe Valera.
Mayor, members of the council, first thing I'd like to say tonight is I'm sorry. Deeply apologize. The last meeting, our phone was asked a question by Councilman Nolan, followed up by Mayor Dawson, and we unfortunately gave incorrect answers. So I want to specifically apologize to Councilman Olden, who asked the question initially, specifically to Mayor Dawson with the follow-up. And I want to apologize to the city staff members who've been working on this program for the last 5 years and knew better, knew that we were making a mistake, and I apologize that we made that mistake. We were not up to speed and ready to give a explanation of how the tax abatement program works with the 353, and instead of saying we're not prepared to do that, we gave answers that were wrong. And again, I apologize. I beg your forgiveness. In fact, tax abatement is available, and there's a very complete and thorough process for getting it, as we will discuss in this presentation this evening. And unfortunately, we've also said more than once that this program is basically for property acquisition. That answer is also wrong. In fact, property acquisition has very little to do with this plan, and to the extent that acquisition is necessary, it would be to trigger the tax abatement that is involved. We were prepared to discuss adding property to the redevelopment area on December 16th, and doing that did not require a working knowledge of how the tax abatement process works. So we should have said, when you asked the question, that we didn't know, rather than give the wrong answer. So I hope that you can forgive our mistake, and I appreciate the opportunity to provide the correct information in this meeting. Okay, so the topics for this evening, I'll cover kind of briefly the statutory basis, how, Chapter 353 is a chapter in the Missouri Revised Statutes and where the city draws its authority. We'll talk very briefly also about Chapter 42, which is where 353 incentives live for the city of Sedalia. And then I would like to spend a little more time talking about that 353 development plan for the Midtown residential area. I want to cover the guidelines for tax abatement. That is that document that talks about how we go through the process to get tax abatement through this program. And then we'll also talk about the superseding addendum that was before you at the December 16th meeting, where we were prepared to just simply add property to that existing program. I think there's a bill to pay, so I can get to that. Okay. Okay, so here we go. So quickly again, to go through Chapter 353, the statutory provisions of urban redevelopment corporations and tax abatement that's available. Chapter 353 was first included in the Missouri Revised Statutes in the mid-1940s. The very first statute that dealt with this tool was adopted in 1943. It was kind of changed almost immediately in 1945. And at that time, 353 incentives were available only to charter cities and cities with a population of more than 4,000 people. In the late 1980s, the General Assembly began expanding this authority to more cities. And today, 353 is available to all cities in Missouri and the unincorporated areas of St. Louis County and Jackson County. Although as I was looking at the information preparing this for this program tonight, it might be possible that Jackson County can no longer use this authority because their population now exceeds the upper bracket. Sometimes you'll see statutes say that, in a county of this size, they're not greater than that size. They're over 700 now, so that'll be their problem, I guess. Chapter 353 is nestled among the other types of corporation law in Missouri Revised Statutes. For example, general business corporations. So if you go out tomorrow and file with the Secretary of State a corporation, the rules for that are found in Chapter 351. If you were to go form a nonprofit corporation tomorrow, those are found at Chapter 355. You can see that all of the types of business entities in the state are kind of found in this 350s area, and that's where 353 is. 353 corporations are used to remediate blight. Blight is defined in statute in Missouri as conditions that, due to the deterioration of site improvements and sanitary or unsafe conditions that endanger property by fire or other causes, makes it difficult to provide housing accommodation or constitute an economic or social liability. This is something that was changed in the General Assembly just a few years ago, and that's a definition that is now common basically throughout all economic development incentives in Missouri. Remediation of blight is known by Missouri courts, has been found by Missouri courts to be a public purpose. Cities are allowed to spend public funds even when it is for a public or a private use, like a private building or something like that, to remediate blight, because remediation of blight serves a public purpose. This structure is what makes 353 an effective and attractive incentive program. So let's talk a minute about the statutory piece of Chapter 353 plans. To utilize Chapter 353 incentives, you must have two things. One is an urban redevelopment corporation, and two is a development plan to remediate blight. The order in which you do these is not critical. You can have a plan before you have a corporation, or you can have a corporation before you have a plan. Many times the plan is approved before the corporation is created. I work with a lot of cities on economic development incentives, and many cities, like the city of Sedalia, have their own redevelopment corporation, but sometimes a developer or a property owner, if you will come forward to the city, request these incentives, and as a result, we require that applicant to form their own corporation for their project. But Sedalia has one set up since 2020 that other people can utilize, other property owners can come in and utilize, and we have an established plan which we'll talk about more this evening. Urban redevelopment corporations are set up in accordance with Section 353.030 and filed with the Secretary of State. You have to have your purposes, you have to have capital stock, your value of stock, your principal office, your duration, you can't exceed 99 years. You have to list your directors. All the things that you would do if you were forming a corporation or other types of corporations, same thing applies here. A redevelopment plan is usually prepared by a developer who is interested in using this economic development tool, but sometimes cities will initiate these types of programs on their own, especially to remediate blight in a challenged residential area. The program that Sedalia has is not something that is unique only to Sedalia. I've worked with other cities that have a similar, what I would call a neighborhood revitalization program. Independence has probably 7 or 8 of these. City of Independence, we're working on one in the city of Harrisonville. We've seen others, kind of throughout the state that use kind of a similar program, as we'll describe a little bit later. Before holding a public hearing, the governing body must provide notice of the hearing and issue a statement of the tax impact on ad valorem taxes that the 353 plan will have on the other taxing jurisdictions. This plan identifies the redevelopment area, the redevelopment projects to be undertaken, and how the program will be carried out to remediate the blighted conditions and the estimated cost of doing so. So, again, we're kind of going through the statutory piece of 353, okay? Now we'll talk about the tax abatement as it's authorized by statute. In most cases, the funding source of 353 incentives is tax abatement. The grant tax abatement provided in 353 involves a cap or a limitation on a future assessed valuation of the affected real property within the redevelopment area. Now, the wording of the statute can be somewhat tricky because the statute goes back and forth between the concept of valuations and then abatement, right? So if what you set as your valuation of the property, if your valuation is only 25% of what the real value of the property is, then your abatement would be the converse 75%. Does that make sense? So there's kind of a thing, and the statute itself kind of goes back and forth on that. But what it gets down to is that for up to the first 10 years, the assessor does not assess the real property, except that it can assess the real property, but not the improvements, to the extent that the land was assessed in the prior year. So essentially what that means is, for up to the first 10 years, you can get up to 100% abatement of any improvements made to the property during that time frame. Then, what the statute allows is for a second tier of abatement, and that second tier of abatement deals with the next time period, which can be up to 15 years, and there's at least 50% abatement during that time, the way the statute. As required by 353, to receive tax abatement title to the property, title to the property does have to transfer to the redevelopment corporation. Okay? That's what the statute requires. So if anyone is interested in participating in this program, to get a tax abatement, they do have to ultimately sell their property to the corporation, and that typically, the contract is set up ahead of time, and that it immediately is sold back to that property. Okay? But that instance of change of ownership through the corporation is enough to trigger the tax abatement that's okay, again, that's a statutory structure that's put into 353. So once the governing body approves that tax abatement and transfers the property back to the owner, that tax abatement can start. Please understand, that process is completely voluntary. Okay? While there is some property acquisition involved, it is simply just to trigger that tax abatement. Does that make sense? Okay. Now, since blight remediation serves a public purpose, and you have to have a blight finding in order to adopt a redevelopment plan, the other thing we can know is that other city revenues are possible to be used as a funding source for these as well, or other public revenues, I would say. Now, keep in mind that when we talk about those types of revenues, we have to be mindful of what restrictions might be on those funds, okay? So you may have a parks tax. Unless you're revitalizing a park in a 353 area, you're not going to be able to use that parks tax revenue there because it's restricted revenue. On the other hand, though, general fund revenues of the city, and we talk about those all the time, are essentially, they're only restricted by the constitutional requirements for revenue. So any public purpose can be made. So I touch upon that because our Midtown residential development plan has a piece of it, because there's essentially kind of a grant program. I won't steal the thunder of that, so I'll just cover that in a minute. But there is a place where the city has created a funding source that is aside from tax abatement that can also be utilized. So I guess what I would tell you then is this is why the answer about property acquisition is so wrong. We have the ability under this particular plan to provide public funding that involves no acquisition of property whatsoever. But I need to come here tonight to make sure that we make that clear. Okay, this violates every rule of PowerPoint with too many words on it, but essentially what I'm trying to get at is we have a very robust chapter in your city code, chapter 42, that covers anything and everything to do with chapter 353 incentives. This chapter was adopted in 2020. I think it may have actually replaced an earlier chapter that you may have had in place since the 80s. I couldn't find a hard evidence of that, so I don't want to mistake that. But in 2020, your 353 was revamped. And this was at the same time that the Midtown residential plan was approved. And in fact, you can find that plan approval in your city code at section 42-44, subsection C. It addresses that code, that plan in particular. It addresses how to do plans in general, for the most part, throughout all 42, but it does talk about this plan there. There are 24 sections in this chapter that authorize the use of 353 incentives, and many of which are just simply restatements or, kind of a paraphrasing, if you will, of the statutory requirements. So everything stays consistent in that way. The long list on this slide gives you an idea of what is covered in those 24 sections. So let's get to the plan itself. So as mentioned on the previous slide, the Chapter 353 Development Plan residential area was adopted by ordinance number 11168 in May of 2020. There were a couple of factors that served as a catalyst for this program. Sedalia at that time, and maybe even continuing today, facing a housing shortage, both in number and supply. Numerous properties were facing a gradual but continual decay, and maintenance of these properties was just simply getting away from the owners to the point that the properties had a negative value, that even if owners were investing in the property and they put money into it, that property might not even be worth what the investment would be to try to fix it up. And it just was getting away from folks. If these conditions were allowed to continue, it is possible that declining property values could bring down the value of even properties surrounding these properties. So it only makes sense for the city to turn to a long-time neighborhood redevelopment tool, which is 353 incentives. A 353 plan provides a strategy and a vision for revitalizing the planned area. And the purpose of this particular plan, the Midtown Residential Area Plan, was to focus on positive reinforcement rather than continually using the stick of code enforcement. In fact, many of the cities that I work with balance the use of their code enforcement with this incentive and kind of the saying, carrot or stick. This would be the carrot side of encouraging people to invest in their properties and raise that value. The purpose of the plan is also to create a brand that is designed to bring pride and ownership back to the challenged areas. The overriding theme and objectives of the plan were to create pride and ownership of properties where it makes sense to turn renters into property owners, to create areas of identifiable neighborhoods and encouraging neighbors to cooperate there to improve the area that they live in, to create walkable and connected neighborhoods, and to encourage individual investments on a broad scale, creating a rising tide that raises all the boats in the neighborhood. The Sedalia Redevelopment Corporation was created to be a partner with the city to serve as a developer, or maybe even more appropriately, as a master developer of over what is hoped to be hundreds of development projects. Okay? I think there was something in the neighborhood of 1,400 or 1,500 properties that exist in the plan as it exists today. Every single one of those properties could have a certain type of, could create property tax abatement, could do their own little mini plans under the umbrella of the 353 plan as it's presented. Okay, so I mentioned the master redeveloper. So the blight finding allows for the use of public funds to remediate blight. And the city, as I mentioned before, invested seed money into this corporation to make funds available to achieve these objectives. So again, without even participating in tax abatement, a property owner in the plan area could come forward and say, I have this idea for a way to reinvest in my property. Can I get help in doing that? And there is revenue available. There's already earmarked funds set aside to assist in that manner, and that is something that can be done even without tax abatement. I'll talk about for just a moment the Sedalia Redevelopment Corporation Board of Directors. That was set up in the statute, and there's also, there's bylaws, as I mentioned before, in the statutory piece. You have to file these corporations like you would any other nonprofit or a general business corporation. So, and we list in there who the board of directors are. So the board of directors is made up of 3 council members, the Sedalia Public School Superintendent, and 1 citizen at large. Now, why would we include the superintendent? Well, if we're using tax abatement, what is the largest property taxing jurisdiction in any county in the state of Missouri? Almost always the school district. And so they would be the ones that have the greatest impact. So we want their input from the get-go on any types of tax abatement programs there, and that was built into the deal. Okay, built into the plan. I'm going to move from the plan to the tax abatement program guidelines. And this, I'm going to just say again, I apologize. I didn't have this information when we were preparing for the December 16th meeting. wouldn't miss it if I had seen this and I didn't pull it out. And so again, I deeply apologize because this explains exactly how the whole thing works. And so, I'm really sorry. Tax abatements are available on a property-by-property basis under the umbrella of the Midtown redevelopment plan. So quickly, the purpose statement that is outlined in the program guidelines is to provide owners of specific parcels an incentive to rehabilitate their property, to eliminate blight, encourage reinvestment, encourage preservation where it's appropriate, and to increase home ownership and improve the value and appearance of neighborhoods. In order to get the tax abatements, we must remediate the blight. That's the whole point, right? We've identified this area that is struggling and is challenged with blight, and we're trying to undo that. The program guidelines do address the Victorian Towers neighborhood, and the reason that they do that is a historic preservation area, and so there are specific requirements. If you happen to be a property owner in the Victorian Towers area, there may be a few other things that you have to hit upon because of the preservation rules in place, okay? The abatement is outlined in the program guidelines. The property can be abated on the improvements for the first 10 years and 50% abatement on all taxes for the next 15 years. These are up to numbers, okay? So you have, there is some flexibility depending on what it is that you need that we can work within, and that meets, has to fit within the statutory construction as well. Property must be located in the redevelopment area. So that picture might be a little bit difficult to see, but you can see that is a very large redevelopment. The area in blue is what is included in the existing since 2020 Midtown residential area. Okay? So anybody with property in that area can participate in this program. Again, properties located within the redevelopment area may participate, but you cannot participate if you have had a notice of illegal activity occurring on the property that's been issued within the prior 6 months, and the owner was not cooperative with the order and is still in possession of the property, still owns the property. So, we want to make sure that it's, people that are complying with the laws that are getting these incentives. You can't have property maintenance code compliance citations outstanding, and this can apply if you have multiple properties under common ownership that have not been taken care of. You cannot participate if your blight has not been remediated. That is a first step. You have to remediate that blight in order to get that, and you also cannot enjoy the tax abatement if you have delinquent taxes or special assessments. So, in order to participate, there are a couple other requirements. Again, this is a fairly thick document that has, it's very detailed, but I'm trying to hit the high points for you this evening. One of the things you do have to keep in mind that you do have to make a minimum investment into your property in order to qualify. Okay? So in order to qualify, you have to take a look at what is 6.5% of the net present value of the tax abatement in that first 10-year period. Okay? You have to make an investment that is at least equal to that, but at a bare minimum, you have to make an investment of $3,500. So whichever is, it's not the lower. It has to be $3,500 or 6.5% of that net present value is how you would measure that. There are big project improvements that are required, and they're established in those project guidelines. There are, and the things that we think of is, how we're trying to find ways to improve our housing stock. So you have to create thermal efficiency. You're not going to have, doors that are hanging open or windows that don't shut. You replace broken windows and doors. You have to have at least one working smoke detector, working smoke detector from a public safety standpoint. You have to repair the sidewalks outside and repair any retaining walls that may have gotten in disrepair. You have to ensure that your landscaping is maintained, and that you have some minimal landscaping, turf, so forth. And you have to update your electrical service to make sure that it is safe, if that makes sense. There are, other, eligible improvements. There's, a decent list in the program guidelines. It can be anything. There can be structural alterations and reconstruction for addition, chimney repair, finish. It can be masonry work, tuck pointing. There's probably a list of at least a dozen other eligible projects that are in there. So again, if you have a property in this area and you're needing some assistance in getting some of those things done, this is a very positive program designed to help create some ability to either, participate in the city's kind of grant program, if you will, to seed money, or you could qualify for the tax abatement and actually enjoy tax abatement for that 10 and 15-year period to help offset the cost of making these investments. So those guidelines lay out a very detailed step-by-step process for the application and the approval. One of the things I will point out, and this is one of the reasons we made our mistake, is that for tax abatement to occur, you must issue a tax impact statement to the taxing jurisdiction, the affected taxing jurisdiction. So that would be the school district, the county. Even the city would have to get a copy of this because we have property taxes that would be affected by this program. You have to give that, and you have to give a public hearing on top of that. But these will happen on an individualized basis because we won't know until a property owner comes forward exactly how they want to utilize this program. And so that is the point where that tax abatement comes into play, and we have additional procedural steps. And again, I apologize. That's where I made a mistake. That's where we missed it, that about the tax abatement. So I'm very sorry for that because it was completely incorrect. Okay. So the final note here. So I'm going to step back just a couple slides. So we talked about before. The big blue area there is your current redevelopment area. You see in the center of it, it's a weirdly shaped donut hole, but there's a donut hole that is roughly kind of the Sedalia downtown area, if you will. So the goal on December 16th was simply just to make that whole thing blue. And so we had done the work prior to develop a black study for you. We had done other items to get it to the point where we can add these properties that are currently not able to utilize these incentives. And I know in just other projects that I work on for the city, we have buildings on Main Street, for example, that would actually benefit from this type of an incentive being made available to them, that could definitely need it. I drive past them on my way in and out every time I come to City Hall. So, it's a really fantastic, it's a really positive program, and I'm so sorry that our answers at that last meeting took it in the wrong direction. So, I stand before you again, ask your forgiveness, and yes, that's what I can say.
Thank you, George. Council, do you have any questions?
Would you go back to the other donut hole slide, for lack of better?
Yeah.
So I wanted to hear you. It's there at the bottom of the slide. There's been some confusion about the corporate board of directors and that they could profit from this. In the last two bullet points, I want to emphasize those directors are not owners. Their role is to guide the corporation. And secondly, they're forbidden to be compensated for this work. Would you talk about that for a second?
Yes, thank you, Councilman Bliss. I appreciate that because I was going from notes and didn't actually get those bullet points covered. So that is correct. So the only shareholder of the corporation, the Sedalia Redevelopment Corporation, is the city of Sedalia. Okay, so that's the only owner of it. And that's where, the city and the corporation, because of the structure of how 353 works at the statutory level, this is how, we're working that piece of that. So you said it, but I'll say it again. The directors in this case are not owners. We talked about who the directors are. There's 3 members of the council, so elected officials of the city. There's the superintendent of schools, and then there's one citizen at large who is selected to serve on that. And they are not allowed to earn any compensation for this work. So definitely, these folks are not doing this for the money because there is no money to be had.
I've got one more if no one else does. And I've gone through training over the years in these things, the thing that always confuses me is that part where someone that's interested in this has to sell their property to the corporation, and then it's sold back to them immediately. What's the practical side? Why is that? I still can't wrap my head around that. Is there something there I'm missing? Why does that transfer have to occur, and then it has to come in?
I guess, you know,
It's not really sold either, it's just deeded over.
yeah, it does, it changes possession, so it changes, you know, there is an ownership change, and it's for a fraction of a second. You know, the best I can tell you is, it's because the statute requires it, right? Because they say that you have to transfer over. Now, there are circumstances where the corporation could continue to own it. In all of the 353s I've ever worked on, we've never done it that way. In fact, I worked on the one in Independence, one of the ones that Independence has. And, you know, one of the things we do have to be cautious of, and I'll just note it here so we've got it in our minds, right, is if your property is subject to a mortgage, we need to make sure that we get clearance from your bank.
So that could be,
You know, so that it doesn't trigger an early payback of your mortgage, right? And you know, banks are usually, you know, they want to know about it, but they're actually very good with it, because what are you doing? You're investing in their collateral. So, you know, banks do like that. But yes, the statute requires it, and that's why we have to do it. You know, I will guarantee you, it's complicated and confusing, and I think we would rather not do it, but that's what the statute requires.
but maybe we could justify it by saying that it pushes it through the title process so that we do get clarification. At least we know we have a clean title then going back and forth.
Yes.
So, okay.
Joe, I think, reading all that, I kind of surmise that it's the state protecting the city, that the money is spent what it's borrowed for.
That could be just as much a good.
That's what I surmise from it. You know, I mean, it's just an instant sign it, and they sign it and hand it back. But now you're obligated to spend that money on what you bought it for.
I would ask the mayor or someone if it's possible to list all of these areas. I mean, the little blue blight on the map is real cute, but for those that can't see exactly where it is, we would like to know what streets are actually affected by this, so that when we go out and we are talking to the citizens, we can say, okay, you live in a neighborhood, you own a home here, and you're wanting to improve that home, and it would be covered under the 353. I believe we need to be able to let people know this is where it's at.
I would guess, and you know, we weren't the city attorney at the time this was approved, but I would guess that maybe even at the time it was approved, we probably do have some big maps, or we could create some big maps.
Well, I don't need a map, I just need a list of the streets.
Yeah.
That would work for me, a list of the streets that this is going to be affected for. Because as it is right now, out there in the public, what's being said is only business owners can do this, when in fact that is not true.
Mostly residential. This ad, if you guys approve it at your next meeting, I assume it'll come up before the next meeting, you know, it would add some opportunities for some more commercial properties, but for the most part, this is a residential program.
Okay. And I'd also would like to have it put in simple terms of how do you go about applying for this. Everything that you said tonight is wonderful. I'm sitting here going, what did he talk about? You know, let's simplify it to where the people that need to use this or can use this will be able to understand how to use this. Thank you.
Anything else?
This truly is such an amazing tool, and as Joe stated, it is used all across the state. Before we started implementing this, council and staff took a trip to Elm Springs, and that was a community that was almost 100%, if not 100%, blighted. Residential homes, businesses, just empty lots, all of it was absolutely dilapidated. And over the course of years, with this entire community under this Chapter 353, beautiful homes have been built. New businesses have been built. This town that was a blotch on the map has become a tourist destination and a place to live and retire at. So thank you for providing clarity to this. for that. Yeah, I wish we kind of had this presentation with a little bit more clarity for the last time. And I agree with Tina. I think one of the things that we've always kind of been noted on from the public is better communication on things like this. And we've had this for a little while, and this is such an amazing tool that, yeah, we just need more communication and as Tina said, clarity on really how to access this tool for its residents. So, thank you.
I had a person call me and ask me, if the area that they lived in was considered blight, and they kept their home up real nice, and then they lived in the area that was blight. Would that decrease the value of the property?
I would say it should not. The other, one thing you have to know about the blight, you know, as I mentioned before, it's a statutory, definition that you have to meet, okay? When you are following a blight finding, there's a related blight finding to add in the donut hole, if you will. You look at the area, and on the whole, it's a question of whether it's blighted. So that does not mean that every individual property is blighted. It's just that the general area can be. And I guess what I would suggest, and this comes from years of other types of economic development tools, too, that are blight focused, right? Blight remediation focused is, I would suggest that it probably gives you greater value of your property because you are in this blight area, because you are a part of this redevelopment plan area, your property is entitled to receive certain incentives that properties that aren't in that area could get. So, you know, for someone, you know, if you're looking to sell your home and, you know, maybe, let's say it's someone who's at a point where they can't handle the home anymore, you know, they've aged in place and it's just too difficult or whatever, and they're looking to sell it to someone who might come in, remodel, remediate it, and then turn it back out and put it back on the marketplace. Wow, that's going to be kind of a no-brainer for, I think, some investor to come in and say, yes, I would like to purchase this property. I have the ability to use this great tool. We can make some investment into that, and there's a tax abatement on the backside.
Okay, thank you, sir.
You know, we could have a workshop for real estate agents and lawyers in town and make sure they're aware of this, and help us avoid owning property we don't want to own anyway. It would be money well spent, I think, to not only address it to the general public, but also some of our professionals in the area that could recommend it to people.
Any other questions, Captain?
Yeah.
I think the only thing I would say in closing there is, you know, so your addition of property should be before you guys at the next council meeting, and I'll say it now, and I'll say it, you know, again on the 21st. This is a really great program, and it would be fantastic for those property owners in particular to be able to participate in this program. So I would encourage you to strongly consider approving that addition of property when it comes before you at the next meeting. Thank you, Mayor.
All right, I think that's everything for community development. Up next, we have finance administration. Chairwoman Bogus, you have the floor.
Thank you. We have 3 items tonight. The first one being a presentation of the Sedalia Pettis County Economic Development. Ms. Jessica?
She'll be doing this remotely if she's falling ill.
Yes, thank you. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Fantastic. Thank you for letting me join you virtually. My son decided to share his stomach flu with me, so thank you for letting me be there virtually. If you can go to the next slide.
I'm sorry, I'm not
Mr.
understanding.
Mayor, we don't have clarity.
Easy to understand. To me, are you guys getting it?
No.
Is it possible, and your convenience, your council's and Jessica Craig's convenient, to maybe have this presentation at the beginning of our workshop?
She actually had a scheduling conflict, is what was relayed to us. Jessica, is there any way you can speak closer to the mic?
Sure, yeah, thank you. Can you guys hear me okay?
It's still not really coming through. Is there any way that you could go ahead and schedule this for in-person at a future date?
Yeah, we can do that.
Okay. We'll get with her then, and we'll reschedule this for an upcoming meeting.
Thank you, Jessica.
Thank you guys so much.
Appreciate it. The next item tonight is, an amendment for the MOU with Buffalo Regional Health Center. Last year, it came to the city's attention that several workers' compensation services for city employees were being completed outside the Bothwell Health System. Discussions with Bothwell Regional Health Center and Missouri Employers Mutual, the city's WC provider, revealed that the hospital was not part of the MEM's network through OneCall. So to address this and keep services local, the city and Bothwell developed a direct pricing memorandum of understanding, which was approved by City Council in November of 2023, and the agreement outlines reimbursement rates for wellness and WC services provided by the hospital to the city employees. Staff now recommends amending the MOU to include an additional reimbursement option for services not covered by the Medicare fee schedule, ensuring consistency and clarity in how these charges are handled.
Before we proceed with the reading of the ordinance, just for everybody's edification, John Simmons was unable to be present tonight to give the Scott Joplin Ragtime Foundation annual report, so that's why we skipped over. So with that, we'll go ahead and call for the reading of the ordinance in relation to the amendment to the MOU.
Bill number 2025-1, an ordinance amending the memorandum of understanding with Bothwell Regional Health Center for direct bill services.
Second reading?
Second.
I have a motion and a second for a second reading. Do I have any discussion? Having heard none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Bill passes.
Bill number 2025-1, an ordinance amending the memorandum of understanding with Bothwell Regional Health Center for direct bill services.
Final passage?
Second.
I have a motion and a second for the final passage of this bill. Do I have any council discussion regarding it? Having heard none, roll call, please.
Oldham.
Yes.
Marshall.
Yes.
Bogus.
Yes.
Hiller.
Yes.
Cross.
Yes.
Foster.
Yes.
Bliss.
Yes.
Robinson.
Yes.
All in favor.
All right, bill passes.
Our next item is a budget amendment and agreement for personnel search in the amount of $28,150. To ensure a fair and transparent process for the city administrator search, the Human Resource Department is requesting to partner with Strategic Government Resources, which is a third-party recruitment firm, to conduct a nationwide search. The proposed executive full-service recruitment, detailed in the attached scope of services, has a cost not to exceed $28,150, and this is excluding any candidate travel expenses. This initiative was not included in the fiscal year 2025 budget, and the HR department is seeking approval of the SGR contract along with a budget amendment to allocate the required funds that are needed.
Okay, as this is a budget amendment, we have a resolution and two ordinances in relation to it. So we'll start with the resolution first. Call for the reading of the resolution.
Resolution 2121, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Sedalia, Missouri, stating facts and reasons for the necessity to amend and increase the city's annual budget for fiscal year 2025.
Motion to approve.
I have a motion to approve and a second. Do I have any council discussion? Having heard none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion passes. We'll now call for the reading of the first ordinance in relation to this matter.
Bill number 2025-2, an ordinance amending the budget for the fiscal year 2024-2025 regarding personnel recruiting services.
Second reading?
Second.
I have a motion and a second for the second reading of this ordinance. Do I have any council discussion regarding it? Having heard none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion passes.
Bill number 2025-2, an ordinance amending the budget for the fiscal year 2024-2025 regarding personnel recruiting services.
Final passage.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for the final passage of this bill. Do I have any council discussion regarding it? Having heard none, roll call, please.
Marshall.
Yes.
Bogus.
Yes.
Hiller.
Yes.
Cross.
Yes.
Foster.
Yes.
Bliss.
Yes.
Robinson.
Yes.
Oldham.
Yes.
All in favor.
Bill passes. And we have the final ordinance in relation to this matter. I'll call for the reading of the ordinance.
Bill number 2025-3, an ordinance authorizing an agreement for executive recruitment services.
Second reading?
Second.
I have a motion and a second for the second reading of this ordinance. Do I have any council discussion regarding it? Having heard none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion passes.
Bill number 2025-3, an ordinance authorizing an agreement for executive recruitment services.
Final passage?
Second.
I have a motion and a second for the final passage of this bill. Do I have any council discussion regarding it? Having heard none, roll call, please.
Bogus,
Yes.
Hiller,
Yes.
Cross,
Yes.
Foster,
Yes.
Bliss,
Yes.
Robinson,
Yes.
Oldham,
Yes.
Marshall.
Yes.
All in favor.
Bill passes.
And that's all I have.
All right, thank you, Chairwoman Boggs. Up next, we have Public Works. Chairman Hiller, you have the floor.
Okay, well, I had two items, but we're only gonna talk about one. Amy is home sick, so we're gonna skip her, planning for the Park and Recreation, and we're gonna go, we need an ordinance authorizing and ratifying the purchase. Our IT department addressed an urgent need to secure network connectivity at the central wastewater plant to support the SCADA system upgrade. Initially, fiber optic connectivity was considered but was deemed infeasible due to high costs and installation complexities. A wireless network solution using ubiquity equipment was proposed by the SCADA vendor but was rejected because it failed to meet critical cybersecurity standards recommended by the CISA. To resolve the issue, we have approved the installation of wireless network using Cisco equipment, which offers enhanced security at a cost of $29,991.37. This emergency purchase, authorized by Mayor Dawson, was necessary to prevent project delays and ensure system security. Initially, it was thought additional funds were needed, but the IT budget repair fund is able to cover the expense within their budget. The city is working with a trusted vendor to complete the installation promptly. Staff requests emergency purchase authorized by Mayor Dawson be ratified.
All right, call for the reading of the ordinance.
Bill number 2025-4, an ordinance authorizing and ratifying the purchase of a wireless network for the central wastewater plant for SCADA project.
Second reading?
Second.
I have a motion and a second for the second reading of this bill. Do I have any council discussion regarding it? Having heard none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion passes.
Bill number 2025-4, an ordinance authorizing and ratifying the purchase of a wireless network for the central wastewater plant for SCADA project.
Final passage.
Second.
A motion and a second for the final passage of this bill. Do I have any council discussion regarding it? Having heard none, roll call, please.
Hiller,
Yeah.
Cross,
Yes.
Foster,
Yes.
Bliss,
Yes.
Robinson,
Yes.
Oldham,
Yes.
Marshall,
Yes.
Bogus.
Yes.
All in favor.
All right, thank you, Chairman Hiller. Up next, we have Public Safety. Chairman Robinson, you have the floor.
This has to do with the police grievance policy update. An ordinance will be necessary. The Human Resources Department is proposing an update to the personnel policies manual to ensure compliance with updated state statutes, specifically 590, These statutes mandate the inclusion of additional language in section 8.4, which addresses the suspension, demotion, or termination of police officers. The proposed changes aim to align the city's policies with the statutory requirements. These updates reflect the state's provisions for fair treatment, procedural transparency, and adherence to established legal standards. The changes have been reviewed by legal, and staff recommends acceptance of the changes.
All right, we'll call for the reading of the ordinance.
Bill number 2025-5, an ordinance amending the personnel regulations manual of the city of Sedalia, Missouri relating to suspension, demotion, or termination of police officers and removal of chief law enforcement officer.
Second reading?
Second.
A motion and a second for the second reading of this bill. Do I have any council discussion regarding it? Having heard none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion passes.
Bill number 2025-5, an ordinance amending the personnel regulations manual of the city of Sedalia, Missouri relating to suspension, demotion, or termination of police officers and removal of chief law enforcement officer.
Final passage.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for the final passage of this bill. Do I have any council discussion regarding it? Having heard none, roll call, please.
Cross,
Yes.
Foster,
Yes.
Bliss,
Yes.
Robinson.
Yes.
Oldham.
Yes.
Marshall.
Yes.
Bogus.
Yes.
Hiller.
Yes.
All in favor.
Bill passes.
The city of Sedalia is renewing its long-standing mutual aid agreement with the Missouri Department of Conservation. This agreement defines the responsibility of both parties in the prevention, detection, and suppression of wildfires in Pettis County. Under the agreement, the MDC focuses on managing forest, grass, crop, and wildlife fires within the state, while the Sedalia Fire Department is responsible for structural fires and assisting in wildfire suppression when necessary. This collaborative partnership ensures efficient resource sharing and cooperative fire management efforts to safeguard the community. The staff recommends approving this renewal to maintain this agreement.
All right, call for the reading of the ordinance.
Bill number 2025-6, an ordinance authorizing a mutual aid agreement for fire and emergency services by and between the city of Sedalia doing business with the Sedalia Fire Department and the Missouri Department of Conservation.
Second reading.
Second.
A motion and a second for the second reading of this bill. Do I have any council discussion regarding it? Having heard none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion passes.
Bill number 2025-6, an ordinance authorizing a mutual aid agreement for fire and emergency services by and between the city of Sedalia doing business with Sedalia Fire Department and the Missouri Department of Conservation.
Final passage.
Second.
A motion and a second for the final passage of this bill. Do I have any council discussion regarding it? Having heard none, roll call, please.
Foster.
Yes.
Bliss.
Yes.
Robinson.
Yes.
Oldham.
Yes.
Marshall.
Yes.
Bogus.
Yes.
Hiller.
Yes.
Cross.
Yes.
All in favor.
Okay, let's see, community development we've already done. Other business, call for the reading for the acceptance of board resignations.
I don't
Oh, you don't have one? Okay. All right. We'll move on to liquor licenses. Call for the reading of the liquor licenses.
I have one new license tonight for Shelley Shugart, doing business as the End Zone at 3129 West Broadway for liquor by the drink and Sunday sales.
Motion to approve. Second.
I have a motion to approve and a second. Do I have any council discussion regarding this liquor license? Having heard none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, approved. Moving on, any miscellaneous items from the city council?
I've got something, if no one else.
Well, one, it's got to be said, great work to the Public Works Department, both city and county. That was a fantastic job. I mean, roads were tackled almost instantly. Water Department, did I hear about one pipe busting anywhere? Yeah, that's amazing. So, I know, that's me, shoot.
It's only a matter of.
I know, that's all on me. Chief Irwin says that because I'm not allowed to step foot on the fire department property, because every time I step foot on it, they gotta go out. So, Public Works, first responders, you guys are amazing. Great job this weekend. That's all.
Anyone else?
I have a concern, and I believe it is a great concern of the citizens that's over on the north side of town. On December the 26th, our fire department and Pettis County Ambulance District was stopped at the railroad track with a train going through, and they were headed to an emergency call. This is not acceptable. There should be something in place, and I thought that we had something in place that would prevent this from happening. The individuals on that side of town pay taxes just like everybody else does. We expect service just like everybody else does. This, again, I say, is unacceptable. That individual could have very well lost their life waiting on a train to pass through Sedalia for our fire department and the Pettis County Ambulance Department to get to them. That is unacceptable. We must do something about it, and we must do something about it now, not later, not think about it. Let's figure it out, but do something now for those citizens on that side of the tracks.
Okay. Councilman Bliss?
I want to kind of summarize. I've been working for I told people months ago that I'd work to try to get some kind of remediation with the county. and get things straightened out, or try to get things straightened out with withholding of road and bridge tax revenues for the city. To date, it's $370,400 worth of, actually more now. We would have received our first quarter of the next year, so it's approaching $1 million. If people know the history of the tax, I want to just say for a moment for the crowd, the tax was first initiated in 2000, in cooperation with the city and the county. Todd Smith and Jane Gray worked together basically to create this road and bridge tax, and that's the best way for this process to be done. I truly believe that the best thing for the county and the city is to work together and have one road and bridge tax. But the wording of the road and bridge tax is so vague, the county has been able to withhold that revenue from us since April of 2023. We've had some differences, and I just represent the people that are Pettis County residents inside the city limits of Sedalia. They should have access to that revenue from that tax, just like the residents throughout the entire county, all right? If you think about this for a minute, if we were to, and I'm going to propose to the council tonight and ask for something, we've got to make up this revenue one way or another. Kind of following Tina's idea, I guess I'll tell you that I had worked out a whole series of things so that the history of the tax is that it was started in 2000. The city of Sedalia and the other cities within the county have received the same amount of revenue since 2000. Sedalia, for instance, received $365,400. Now remember, this tax generates $4 million. And so the county still has $3.25 million left over, and these are round numbers. But they've got nearly all of the revenue for the things that are important out in the county. But the people that pay the tax inside the city limits, our streets are deteriorating too. So I think to help you understand where I'm coming from too, I want you to understand that the process to get a tax or a request on the April ballot, the next thing that has to happen is if we were to come up with some way to make up this revenue, and I'm going to propose this in just a second, we have to have that to the county clerk before the 28th of January, okay? We've got one more council meeting before then. If we can't count on this revenue, and I would tell you right now, if that wording that the county has submitted the same vague language as they've had since the last renewal in 2020, that allowed them to do this granting process and withhold this revenue flow from us. If it stays that vague wording, we're pretty much helpless. Our legal team has told us, hey, it's worded vaguely in the ballot language, and the ballot language is what a judge would look at, right? I proposed that they make a more specific ballot language and work it out. It's reasonable to basically just get us the same or a little bit more revenue. Remember, we got $365,400, and so did all the other cities in the county in 2000. That number was never adjusted for 20 years. Okay, so basically, I'm proposing the same thing that has been going on, but a percentage instead of just a dollar amount, so that every year that amount would go up. If the revenue goes up, it would go down if the revenue goes down. But basically the same amount, split the pot the same way. But the county's not willing to do that yet. So it boils down to this. Now remember, we don't have, I want to direct the staff, I want to ask the council to direct the staff to create the wording for a 1/8% sales tax for roads in Sedalia. We can talk as a council about that, but basically to make up that revenue that we won't receive if the county, does have vague language. They can still change their language too. They have until January 27th or 28th. I think we should propose an 1/8 of a cent sales tax to make up that revenue. That 1/8 of a cent would generate $1 million a year, approximately, instead of $365,000 a year. The other thing that we can do with that revenue is use it for the bridge. We're gonna have to replace that viaduct. That viaduct was built in 1911, and the council could decide from year to year. And this tax that we would propose, I think, should sunset in 5 years. The other thing that the county did is they, in their language that's proposed right now, they took the sunset off. So that's especially precarious for us, and I think it's precarious for the county. Because over the years, who knows how the commission's membership is going to be composed. You could get, we are all county residents, all of us. City people, Green Ridge people, Smithton people, all of us are county residents. So we would have in front of us as the residents of Sedalia a choice, at least, in April, if we can't get the county to change their wording. We could vote for an 1/8 of a cent sales tax that sunsets in 5 years, and we could get our revenue back, and we could have revenue to almost immediately start the process of building a new viaduct. Because Tina's concern is only going to be solved by one thing, and that's a new viaduct. We've got to go ahead and make that decision. I don't know any other way to alleviate that problem that that legitimate problem that we're all concerned about, than other than to go ahead and fast forward this new viaduct process. And if we have $1 million a year, we typically use $365,400 for roads that we are seeing deteriorate in today. At least in the Fourth Ward, we are already seeing the effects of not having this revenue. But the best thing is if we get this in place and we can, and I will take this to the commission and say, look guys, it's not a threat, it really isn't. But we've got to replace this revenue somehow. And we do need to find the revenue for this viaduct. And so I'd like to ask the council tonight, I'd like to make a motion that we direct staff to, and before the next council meeting, come back to us. They can work with us to some degree. We can all have our own input, either tonight or individually. But basically my idea, just core basic idea is 1/8 of 1%. That's it. I don't want any more than that. That generates approximately $1 million a year for us, where we can offset the loss of revenue from that we're not. I'm convinced we're not going to receive again. I worked my tail off this year. I submitted. I worked with the commission. I did it in a positive way. I wasn't. I truly want to serve everybody in Pettis County. And I truly believe that the best resolution is a better language on the county's side, and to continue the road and bridge tax the way it has been basically since 2000, since Jane Gray and Todd Smith worked it out. They were good examples for us. And Commissioner Smith and God rest Jane, she's gone. But that commission, that council worked it out, and I really think the best thing for the county is, for all of us in the county, is to make some resolution there. But short of that, if we can't get them to change the wording that they've submitted, but can still be changed, then I think we need to go ahead and submit an 1/8 of a cent and use it basically for the viaduct, for the new viaduct, or possibly to briefly repair the old viaduct, but that thing was, it doesn't fit. It was built in 1911, it doesn't handle the equipment that needs to go across it now, it's just outdated. So, I would like to make a motion that, and see if I can get a second, to direct staff to develop this. We can look at it next time. We don't have to submit it until the 28th of January. And so it gives us some ability to talk to the commission one last time and say, guys, we want to work together with you, but if you don't, we've got to figure out some type of way to generate revenue to maintain these roads inside the city limits of Sedalia.
So just for clarification, Councilman Bliss, you're making the motion to direct staff to bring back an ordinance with the ballot language for an 8-cent sales tax for,
I think it would have to be for us, it would have to be general revenue, but we would specifically use it for roads. I wouldn't mind roads, sidewalks, curbs, basically infrastructure, our road infrastructure. But I would say that a significant portion of it should also be dedicated to the viaduct. And perhaps that money, we could start immediately if we, you know, I'm at the beginning of the process, but we could probably figure out a way to budget both and finance the viaduct now and start it immediately. And that also gives us an ability to find matching funds and have some matching funds specifically for that viaduct. It's an important part of Sedalia. It's got to go through. It'll help us economically. But as this thing is unfolded, it seems to me like this is a fair, reasonable thing, especially since it'll give the community a chance at some point in time, and I'll listen to you, Mr. Dixon, but it gives us a chance to interact with the community for several weeks beforehand and, you know, and get the temperature there. But I think it makes sense in a lot of ways, but we've got to replace this revenue, and we've got to find some way to move forward on this viaduct.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor directing staff to prepare an ordinance adding an 8-cent sales tax to the April ballot. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any council discussion?
I'm going to oppose this. I don't feel we need to throw another tax onto the ballot. My understanding is that there's going to be several taxes already on the ballot. I would much rather see us work harder in our relationship with the county than to make the community pass their tax, the other taxes, and now we're throwing our tax on there too. So I'm going to oppose this. We need to work better and stronger at repairing our relationship with the county.
Again, Tom, this is only preparing the language, and it gives us a couple of weeks to decide whether or not we would submit it.
So I have one speaking in opposition, I have one speaking in support. Would anyone else like to make comment? Having heard none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Aye.
Jason, keep poll the council, please.
Absolutely. Robinson,
Yes.
Oldham,
No.
Marshall,
No.
Bogus,
No.
Hiller,
Yes.
Cross,
Yes.
Foster,
Yes.
Bliss.
I'm a yes.
You have 5 yes and 3 no.
5 yes and 3 no, motion passes. We'll be bringing that back to you on the January 20th meeting. Okay, any other comments from the council?
Yeah, I have something. This here is a national magazine that I get every year after year after year, and I just want to congratulate the State Fair Speedway and Larry McCown for what he does with the money he makes on his fair race. He donated part of it back to Retrieving Freedom, and then there's been about 4 other organizations that he donated money to. So I just want to say congratulations to Larry for doing what's right.
All right, very good. Anyone else? All right, well, we'll go ahead and move on to the good and welfare portion of our agenda. Before we begin, I'd like to remind everyone of the framework for this segment. Each speaker is requested to step forward, clearly state their name, address, and will be allotted 3 minutes to present their statement. Please note this is not a session for dialogue or debate with the council, nor is it a period for question and answer. It is a time for you to make your voice heard, for us to listen, and your statements to be entered into the public record. We ask that all remarks be kept respectful and pertinent to community matters. And so with that, we'll go ahead and open up the floor.
Hello, David Goodson, 1640 Edge Apple Drive. I'd like to say thank you to the street department as well. I was out early today, and they did a great job. Congratulations to Mr. Garrigus on 30 years and Matt on 25. Being a business owner, I know how important it is to have dedicated people, and we're lucky for that. So congratulations to you guys. I would like to say thank you for the clarification on the 353 plan. After hearing clarification, I do support that. I have participated in property tax abatement on 2 major projects through the economic development. It worked well, and just part of the reason, other things we offered in other counties to do. So I think handled properly, they can spur development and be a good thing. So I appreciate that clarification on those. I would like to ask when you guys, Bob, when you guys are reading your committee reports, who prepares those? Is that something, who hands you that packet? If you guys are running these committees, who's writing that report for you guys? If that's something you can tell us, maybe I can answer it now, but it's something you could even tell me after the meeting. Steve, on this tax, we're already at 8.73%. We're too high. More sales tax will kill retail. People already shop out of town and do those things because we're challenged on what retail we can offer, because we don't offer everything that maybe Columbia or Lee's Summit, some of these places have. And I think it hurts our local retailers the higher the sales tax gets. I know just with my own products moving from the county to the city, what that means to my customers and what I charge them on sales tax. We really shouldn't do it. So I appreciate the 3 no votes that oppose that. I've been watching some of Debbie Covington's TikTok videos, and I have to say she's doing a great job with those. And I was made aware of some of the buildings here in town that the city owns. And I'd like to say to you guys, man, I really wish you'd focus on the city properties, and we could back off of some of the other things we're working on with citizens, which to me tend to be elderly people and maybe economically not able to defend themselves on some of these things that they've dealt with. So if you guys would really focus on some of those properties, I think that would be better for all of us. This money, and this is something that's been bothering me and my group for quite some time, and we're spending, I think, approaching $800,000, maybe a little more with Weber Law Firm. Tina, if you look at the money we've spent on these lawsuits with the county, that's a huge chunk of this money, and I support you. I think what's happening on the north side blocking these roads is absolutely unacceptable, and I would support helping you any way I could. But there's a good chunk of money right there, Steve. We didn't have to be in court. I think we need local representation of our city by someone who lives in our city. If they don't live here, we can recruit them here. But we need somebody that we see at the ball field, we see at the ball games, we see at the high school, we see at all these functions, somebody that's a part of our community. Somebody will keep us out of lawsuits. Advise us not to go to court. Let's settle this stuff.
All right, Mr. Goodson, your time has expired.
Okay. One more thing here. Randy, Kirby, you guys,
Mr. Goodson,
with the Democrat, if you guys would, I appreciate it if you guys would cover the good and welfare portion of the meeting a little heavier, but thank you guys.
All right, anyone else?
Wayne Dixon, 906 Sylvia Drive, today. The reason I wanted to say something while ago, Mr. Blinch, was I was in a meeting, getting ready to go into one, the same day that you and Councilman Scholl was at the courthouse, and I heard the county tell you guys get some numbers together for that bypass, and they would try to work with you guys. Let's put the bad that's behind us. So go back up there and try to get things worked back out like you guys should, okay? And then what I'm really here for is, I'd like to show a hand. I was here December 16th, and I asked 9 people that I'm looking at tonight to come up and take a look at our 5 buildings that my son, my brother, and my future wife own. How many of you guys showed up? Can I see a hand of who showed up?
Who looked, means to look at the building,
Huh?
to look at the building.
Yes. I asked 9 of you to come up there. I had 2 people come up there. And because of the damage that has been done by the person that installed those sidewalks, which we've been in meetings with Joe, Todd, Mr. Work, Calvin, several people. There's been no damage done up there. But ask these 2 guys. We got to get a resolution because guess what? We're not leaving, okay? We want to salvage those buildings. But until the city will come and see what these 2 gentlemen seen, and what I've hired, my people have hired structural engineers to find out what's going on. You know, the thing is, we shouldn't have to involve your law firm that you fired, and I should have my people directed to a law firm either. Let's be gentlemen, just like the county, okay? Let's fix the issue downtown. I can't be in the 353, my people can, okay? So, we're willing to work with you guys. You was in a meeting with us, right, Joe, on this whole thing. And I'm telling you guys right now, this ain't a threat. If I get one more letter from your building code official about these buildings, that I can't even get your building code official to get in the basement that these 2 men went down in to see the problem. He won't get up on the roofs with me. I'm a contractor of 40 years. I tell him every time he comes up there, if you're scared, go to church, okay? The resolution's got to happen up there, just like it's got to happen on the north side of the tracks. And you guys probably say, why are you so damn hyper mad? Because I've been dealing with this since I come home, July of 23, okay? And Mr. Dawson, you're very aware of what I'm talking about tonight, aren't you?
Your time has expired, Mr. Dixon.
Well, one thing that hasn't expired is my actions. Think about it.
All right, anyone else?
I can handle it from here, I can go, oh, I'm sorry, didn't see coming.
London Ryan, speaks up to West Cooper. So I live currently on the other side of the, tracks with my mom, but planning to build on the other side of the tracks here in the future. So the emergency that happened had over 30-something shares from one post.
30 what?
30-something shares on Facebook.
Oh, shares,
Photos
okay.
that circulated showing them on the other side of the track. They waited 3 to 5 minutes. I'm sorry, I have health issues, my children have health issues, there are several people in my church home that have health issues. 3 to 5 minutes could be their life. Something has to be done. We thought we had a solution. I have not yet seen a virus or insurance parked over in Dollar General that was supposed to be the solution when there was a long train. So, not even mentioning just the viaduct, but you guys have roads that are locked. So maybe until the viaduct can get fixed, they should unblock those city roads so that there's still a way to get over there. That's got to be faster. It's not acceptable at all. It's like we're always on the north side of the track put on the back burner, and we're tired of getting put on the back burner. I don't agree with raising the taxes. That's not going to fix the solution. Something else has to work. And we need a solution today, not tomorrow. It's 2025, let's get it figured out. We've been figuring it out, having several meetings in 2024, 2023, and something's got to get. Thank you.
No, thank you. Anyone else?
You want me to walk around?
Walk around.
I want to address some things, can I speak as a, I guess, I'm sorry, Debbie, I didn't see you coming.
I just want to request Debbie Covington, 2601, Eagle, between the council meetings, the council committee meetings. Mr. Wirt, at the last council meeting, I respectfully requested that you work towards, with the IT department, to stream the council committee meetings. So this gives the public an opportunity to be in the know. When it comes to ballot measures, taxes, talking about the bridge, about grants, about the 353 project that people were very much in the dark on, and confused on, the Sedalia Redevelopment Corporation, the budget session we have coming up this weekend. If these things were streamed, and the public, if they're with their kids, they're working, they have other, things going on, they would be able to, tune in if they can't be here in person. And I think it could save us from a lot of confusion, why the public has to make Facebook groups, has to have discussions between ourselves. I sent an email to my ward representatives, Mr. Hiller and Mr. Cross. Mr. Cross was the only one that called me, when I had questions about 3x3 project and Sedalia redevelopment, and, I appreciated that. I wanted to get with him before this night to speak, it didn't happen, but he was the only one that called me back. So if we're not gonna communicate, answer emails, give phone calls, it could save a lot of confusion and a lot of guesswork if you were put something in place to stream the council committee meetings so we can be involved if we can't be here face to face. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Anyone? Oh, you're a citizen, I mean, you can...
I'll just wait. I do want to say one thing. As a citizen, I guess, out of respect for everybody else.
You have 3 minutes.
Okay, well, let's try to... So really, I guess one thing that, gives us an opportunity to do is kind of respond to David. And that is, if I'm a resident of the city of Sedalia, if we put an issue on an 8% sales tax that sunsets in 5 years on the ballot, we're going to be able to vote on that, and as residents of the city of Sedalia, we're going to be able to vote on the half-cent sales tax. So I can vote for the 8% sales tax, get my road and bridge money that I need, and I can vote against the half-cent sales tax. And I can therefore reduce the sales tax by 3/8%. So that's one thing that we need to consider. And then respectfully for everybody, I really do want to see something happen, and I cannot think of anything that can happen with regard to getting better access to the north side. But I have family there. I care deeply about that area for a variety of different reasons. I am a person of service for this community, but we're not going to be able to do this without money. That's the sad fact. And so I am going to advocate, if this sales tax does get all the way to the point where it has to go on the ballot, I'm going to advocate for it. Because I truly, in my heart, believe it's the thing that we have to do to get these solutions. And I think that, I wouldn't fight this fight. I'm fighting it for the people of Sedalia, the people of Pettis County. I may be wrong and I may get beat, but I really believe that's the thing to do. And in fact, we should reduce our sales tax, and David could sell more signs.
Oh, can you say your name and address?
Oh, I'm sorry. Steve Bliss, 607 West 26th Street, Sedalia, Missouri.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, anyone else? Okay, having heard none, I will
Motion to move to closed-door session for legal advice, real estate, and negotiated contracts.
I have a motion and a second to move to closed-door session. Do I have any discussion regarding the motion? Having heard none, roll call, please.
Robinson,
Yes.
Oldham,
Yes.
Marshall, Goggis,
Yes.
Hiller, Cross,
Yes.
Foster,
Yes.
Bliss.
Yep.
Thank you. I understand.
This conference will now be recorded.